Stardew Valley, the beloved game of growing some vegetables, doing some fishing, milking some creatures, and then furtively passing your affordable treasures to unsuspecting locals until their hearts finally yield. I give up, they declare, one after another. You're my best friend, my mentor, I'm in love with you, just please stop giving me onions. And just in time too, because you've been playing for 11 hours and you feel a bit sick. Now, I don't know anybody who's asked for a Stardew Valley board game adaptation, but like an onion dropped into the lap of a prospective spouse, we have it anyway, and just in time for the very end of Fun Month. A whole month of games without the theme of just shuffling cubes around in pursuit of economic dominance. So, no prizes for guessing what genre of game our next review is going to be. Now, you're going to have questions. You're going to want to know, Quinns, is this a bad board game? To which I can say, no, it's not. And you're going to want to know, Quinns, is this a good board game? In Stardew Valley, the board game, 1 to 4 players will take on the challenges of the video game cooperatively, building up their shared farmstead, going fishing, plucking ore and geodes out of a mine, making money and, more importantly, making friends, and possibly making a spouse, who you all share? Your objective in this co-op game is, oh gosh, there's more than one. How many are there? Oh gosh! In stark contrast with the video game, the entire point of which was to amicably wander around doing whatever you want, whenever you wanted it, as seasons tumbled past like old friends, Stardew Valley, the board game, plays more like the video game if it was being played by a drill sergeant who wasn't allowed to go to the toilet until he'd reached the end credits. First off, you've got these 4 objectives drawn from a stack of cards known as Grandpa's Letters, which raised some intriguing questions about who your grandpa was. He was an unpredictable man. More on him later. I kind of hate him. You also have to, during the game, give gifts to villagers, which is going to get you heart tokens, which you can spend in the community center, revealing what these other 6 objectives are. You and your friends will not have a single turn to spare. And in that respect, it's like Robinson Crusoe or Pandemic. This is not a game where you go fishing for fun. It's a game where you go fishing and you roll the fishing dice with your heart in your throat, because if you don't get the symbols you need, you can feel the possibility of winning this 2-hour game slipping through your fingers. That said, if you happen to be in the market for a game that really lets you put your head together with 1 or 2 other players, I wouldn't recommend this as a solo game. It's too unbalanced. There's a 4-player game. It's too much of a slog and too slow. Stardew Valley, the board game, could maybe be what you're looking for. Let me show you some of the cool systems on offer here. So, the complexity in this game comes from you and your friends. I've got a 3-player game here, all discussing where you're going to go in town and then where you're going to go from there, like several buses that are constantly picking up and dropping off items. At the start of each day, you're all going to decide where you're going to go, and then as you take your turn, you can either do 2 actions at that space, or, the more efficient and juicy, do an action there, travel, do an action in an adjacent location, because in doing that, you get a free forage action on the way, and you can wrestle a turnip out of the ground, or cut down a tree, or whatever. You know, one of those trees that you just chop down on your way to do something else, like it's no big thing. Once you've all done 2 actions on the main board, or 2 actions in a forage, you all then come home and might be able to do one of a few very select home actions. Then you're going to get absolutely blindsided by one of the season's event cards, which can do good things or bad things. There's actually a ridiculous quantity of things these event cards may or may not trigger. And then you go again, and you do this 4 times for spring, 4 times for summer, 4 times for autumn, 4 times for winter. I almost forgot my months there. And then the game's over, because like I said, you only have 1 year. So I hope in those 16 turns, you manage to complete your 10 objectives. Making things slightly easier is that at the start of the game, each player gets a unique tool that can be upgraded with ore, making them better at a particular thing, and you all choose a unique profession which you level up at the end of each season, granting you special powers. So there's your overview of the game. You're coordinating with your friends to figure out where you're all going to go to maximize your yield of items. You're also doing a lot of really intriguing inventory management. You only have 6 slots, which is super tight. So you're always asking yourself who should hold what things, who should sell what things, and what items you should give as gifts, which is a huge part of this game. I'm just going to cover that make a friend action in more detail because it's superbly odd. Making a friend in this board game is just like real life. So if you want to make a friend, you go to the town centre with pockets full of stuff, and then you will randomly meet someone. Oh, no, not Harvey. And at the moment your eyes meet across town, that's your one and only chance to give them a gift. Okay, you better be carrying something they like. That's really good. And not exclusively stuff from things they will not accept. And also, hopefully, it's their birthday. Because if it's their birthday this season, they'll be extra pleased that you just sprinted across the town square and handed them a fish or whatever. If you give them something they're okay with, they're your friend forever. If you don't have anything that they like, then you will never see them ever again in this game. So that's weird. And only by going through that arcane process will you get the heart tokens that you desperately need to figure out what you're even supposed to be doing with the sodding community centre. So that's the basic turn structure and a rough grasp on how you play Stardew Valley, the board game. For the rest of this review, I'm going to be talking about what it feels like to play. And for that, I'm going to introduce a special guest, someone way better than Quentin Strings. It's my friend and colleague and scarecrow, Mr. Matthew Trees. That's good, isn't it? How's it going, Matt? That was a test. I trained him not to speak while we're on set. So, Matt, let me just have your attention for a second. Oh, that's creepy. The thing about Stardew Valley, the board game, is that it has a lot of variance in it. Variance, yeah, it does. Because it has all of these decks of cards that you can see. Not just that, but the decks of cards are very thick with different things that can happen. There's tiles, there's dice. The game doesn't even really know what player count you've got or what objectives you've got. And so for that reason, playing it, like on a turn-by-turn basis, but also on a game-by-game basis, it's super unpredictable. So to begin with, let's, you and me, look at what a good turn looks like. So on a great turn, me and Matt are going to start by making a plan for the day. Matt's going to go fishing and I'm going to hit the town centre. Then it's like a confetti cannon of cardboard being fired at your face. Matt goes fishing and gets lucky, so he gets fish and a cool item. And then he's going to forage and meet someone and hand them a freshly killed eel. Meanwhile, I go into the mine and I get special ore. And then I go and donate something cool to the museum, which fills a column, which gives us an epic item. Oh my goodness. Then at night, we can use the ore we found to upgrade our tools. Finally, we finish the turn by flipping a season card, and when you look at that, our crops got watered and we get some presents from our friends. Matt, you and I just made so much progress towards our objectives. We've got so many more items to play with next turn. Oh, we're kicking ass at this game. And am I right that you're having fun? Look at that! He's thrilled to bits. But Matt, you're a professional. You better stop smiling like an idiot, because the fact is that the turns in which this game is very generous are somewhat outnumbered by the turns in which all of this random chance causes the game to lock up entirely. I know, it's shocking. First off, how hard Stardew is almost entirely down to the totally random objectives you get dealt. Build 2 farm buildings? Piece of cake, especially if another objective is to own farm animals which require farm buildings anyway. Get to level 12 of the mine, on the other hand, that's as hard as these 3 objectives put together. Catch legendary fish equal to the number of players? That's not so bad, except there are only 4 legendary fish in this bag, so it's just a case of whether they come out or not. I had one game where all of the fish needed bug flesh to catch before I could even be dealt new fish, and the mine just didn't have any bug flesh ever. Look here, this is an easy selection of Grandpa's letters, which I like to call Grandpa Loves You. This is Grandpa Hates You, and this is a random distribution that I like to call Oh my gosh, what did you do to Grandpa? Matt, you're crossing your arms. Clearly, you're not impressed. And I agree. These season cards, these can be so generous as to feel like we're playing with an extra player. Or they can be so unpredictable and irritating that they actually just make the game harder. The epic item you get from filling the museum might win you the game, or it might be literally useless because the game doesn't even know what objectives it's given you. The community center in particular makes me want to burn this community to the ground. You have to spend an incredible amount of hearts, which might be hard to come by, and again, might not. That's just the luck of the draw, to see what they are. And again, they might be easy, hard, or impossible depending on your game state. And in a fix that's so jury-rigged, I can smell the duct tape coming off this game, you can pay more hard-won hearts to swap the objective out with another one that might be easier or might also be impossible. I know. What was that, Matt? Oh, yeah, no, that's right. A game that plays this fast and loose with its probability is okay in some circumstances, like a light-hearted competitive game. But of course, say it with me now, that's not what this is. What they've made here is a game that requires canny coordination and discussion and inventory management and luck from players if they want to achieve victory, where victory is what you're chasing, but where victory can slip out of your grasp through no fault of your own. Matt, you're getting angry, I can tell, and I know why. It's because in a game like this, where luck is required occasionally to pass objectives, as it is in classic co-op game Ghost Stories, now rebadged as The Last Bastion, that game gives players the option to acquire items that help mitigate dice rolls. So even though dice rolls are a big part of The Last Bastion, you can still win if you get unlucky, and that's just not the case here. In Stardew, players are routinely forced to spend their entire turn rolling dice only to still not get the result they need, and there's nothing you can do about it. And all of this hits so much harder in a one-player game where you get half as many actions as you do in a two-player game, and so the random decks hit that much harder. I found in one-player games, I was completely reliant on getting a spouse, but the spouse pawn is only available to you randomly if you happen to find the right epic item. There's again, nothing you can do to make it happen. A brief aside here, you'll notice that in a British accent it's impossible to tell the difference between the phrase spouse pawn and the phrase spouse pawn, which is why we recommend looking for the telltale curling of the lip that occurs when a British person says something naughty. For example, "Hey Matt, can you pass me that spouse pawn?" Matt, look at you. You're clearly exhausted, but let me just pique your curiosity. Ah! So, as I was saying, Stardew Valley, the board game's problem really is that I don't know who it's for. I don't know who it's for. First off, is this board game for fans of Stardew Valley, the video game? Nope, no, it's not. If that's you, I would not go near this game. If you play a lot of board games, you might tolerate losing games, you might tolerate unfairness a little better than someone who plays them very infrequently. And in this game, you're going to lose a lot, and it's going to be very unfair, and I think that's just going to really get under the skin of people who don't play a lot of board games. Also, like the rotten cherry on a dark timeline sundae, Stardew Valley the board game comes with a billion little decks and tile sets and token types, and 0 baggies. There's no functional storage solution at all. Obviously, that's not a problem for me. I have a wide and varied collection of plastic bags that I was able to use to help pack this game away. But if you don't own an amount of plastic bags that would be expected from a board gamer, a drug dealer, or some kind of soil sampler, you're going to be in trouble. Again, I don't want this to be someone's first experience of board games. If you want a cooperative board game that's welcoming for new players, I would always recommend Pandemic or Pandemic Legacy. And hey, curveball, I've heard that Cosmos' new Adventures of Robin Hood board game is supposedly pretty great. Do not buy any of the other Robin Hood board games. My next question, is Stardew Valley the board game a great game for people who just want to run a farm? No, it's absolutely not. This is a disparate collection of mini games and inventory management. It does not feel like you're running a farm at all. If you want a board game where you run a farm, I would recommend Lowlands, or there's Newsfjord if you want to run a little fishing business, or if you can handle some quite heavy rules crunch and you've got the money for it, Hallertau is really a thing of beauty. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, is definitely getting louder.